Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carly Stevens. I'm the author of the Tanyuan Academy series, and this is English Nerd. So every Monday in November, I've been giving videos about how to write a literary analysis essay. So far, there has been preparing for one, which is a super important step, and then the introduction, nailing the introduction and the thesis statement. So if you haven't watched those, I would recommend that you go and do so. Those are really important steps. What I'm going to be talking about today is body paragraphs. Body paragraphs are the middle of your paper. It should be the biggest, most substantial part of the paper. It's where you actually make the argument that you claimed you were going to set out to prove in your thesis statement. So today, I'm just going to break it down into 5 necessary elements that you need to have for every body paragraph for a literary analysis essay. So, part 1, the first thing that you need for each body paragraph, and these are best practices, just as an aside, these are best practices for most papers. At the college level, once you get into very much longer papers, there is a little bit more flexibility, but even so, I would hesitate to say that anybody should stray from these 5 things because they demonstrate great organization and they make sure to support the ideas that you have. Okay, anyway, with that said, the first of the 5 things that you need is a topic sentence. This is something that I've noticed certainly this year with high school students. Even those who can write a really good thesis statement, that claim that answers the prompt, sometimes the topic sentences are not quite as strong. So let me share with you what a topic sentence is, essentially. It's basically a baby thesis statement. It's another claim, and it outlines the part of the thesis that you intend to prove just in this chunk. So the example that I've been going with for this is that you have to write a 5-paragraph essay talking about whether Raskolnikov's motivation in Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment is more selfish or selfless. In the introductory video, I talked about, I made the claim that his motivation is more selfish. So in the body paragraphs, you're not just going to generally talk about how his motivation is selfish, you're going to zero in on an aspect of that. You're going to talk about how his friends and family all view him as very selfish. You're going to look at, maybe that'll be one body paragraph. Another could be his own interior thought process and how he recognizes how selfish it is at times, and so you'll look at a piece of how you're planning to prove your major idea. So every topic sentence should be a claim rather than just a fact. It should not be that, in chapter 11, Raskolnikov thinks this. Nobody's going to dispute that. There's nowhere to go from there. Instead, make sure that it is a significant claim and that it relates directly back to the thesis and helps to prove that. So that'll be your first sentence in a body paragraph. The next 3 elements of the 5 are all having to do with evidence. Without evidence, you really don't have an argument in terms of literary analysis because you're not analyzing the literature. You're maybe thinking about things in a general way, but you've got to have that evidence. So I presume that during the preparation stage, as you were putting together your claims and your ideas, that you gathered some textual evidence, some quotations in context of the story that would support your ideas. So the next 3 elements, my school abbreviates these as ICE, I-C-E. It stands for Introduce, Cite, and Explain. So when you're introducing your evidence, what that means is that you are giving the context. You don't need to go into a lot of explanation about the context, kind of like in your introduction. You don't need to go into the entire story. You can assume that the reader has some knowledge of it, but make sure to orient your reader to exactly where you are, who might be speaking, what's relevant about what's going on at the time. Is this at the very beginning? Does that matter? Is it at the very end? That kind of stuff. So give us context and a tag as well. A tag is just he said, she writes, etc. So that would be the introduction. You're going to introduce your evidence, Cite is next. So you'll give your evidence directly. You'll put the quotation marks around it, and then however your teacher or professor requires, you do need to say where that comes from. So in my school we use MLA, parenthetical citation, which would just be parentheses. Since we're only working with one book, it would only be parentheses with the page number inside. Literally just the number, and then the period on the outside of the parentheses. And you can take a look at sources like the Purdue OWL, which I'll write down below, for different ways to use parenthetical citations as necessary. There are other ways to cite as well. There's Chicago, APA, there's different stuff. So just make sure that you know exactly how to do that. Shakespeare is a little bit different. You'll do act, scene, line number, that kind of thing. But do make sure that for every quotation you do cite it correctly. So introduce, cite, and then E is explain. Explain is when after you give your evidence, you explain how it actually proves your point. It's a common, honestly, a common rookie mistake to say, here's my claim, here's the evidence, check it out. Right? And then not actually connecting those dots for people. Those with the opposite opinion, those who in our example would say that Raskolnikov's motivations are primarily selfless, they also have that line from the book. Why does this line or this piece of dialogue support your idea instead of theirs? The explanation part should be the longest. Introduction should be relatively short in most cases. The quotation should be as short as is necessary. Don't just do a huge block of text and then only reference a little bit of it. Instead, only quote the part that you really need. The explanation part should be several sentences where you are making those connections. So you just, wash, rinse, repeat, that kind of thing with your evidence. And then you come to part 5 of a body paragraph. So you have topic sentence, introduce, cite, and explain your evidence. Probably more than just once, because you want to give a couple different examples to support your claim. And then you get to the final sentence, which is going to be a concluding sentence / transition to the next idea. So you wrap up exactly what you said, why it's significant, and you lead into the next point. Your body paragraph shouldn't read like a list. Also this, also that. There should be a logical flow from one idea to the next. Why is the next one following? Is it because it's a stronger point, or is it because it's related in some way, or what is it exactly? It's, in my opinion, stronger to transition at the end of the previous paragraph than just to use something like a transition word in the topic sentence of your next paragraph. That's more of a I'm learning to do essays at the very beginning sort of thing to do, but the better way to write an essay is to connect your ideas strongly at the end of one paragraph, so it makes sense. We're prepared for what comes next. So here's a pro tip as you're organizing your body paragraphs. If you have a couple of things, if you have a thesis statement that delineates the different reasons why you believe what you believe, then make sure that the topic sentences, the body paragraphs, go in the same order. So that's one thing. Don't mix up that order if you have some list in your thesis. Secondly, leave your strongest point for last. That is what the reader is going to remember best. Whatever your weakest point is, hopefully they're all pretty strong, but whatever your weakest point is, put that in the middle. So if you have a 5-paragraph essay, here would be my strong recommendation. Put your strongest point at the end. The strongest point's probably going to connect to like the overall meaning of the book or have some kind of grander connections. If it doesn't, that's fine, but do put your strongest at the end, your second strongest at the beginning, and then your third strongest in the middle. That way you're starting out of the gate with something that's powerful, and then you're ending with something that's even more powerful, and that's going to give the sense that your argument as a whole is really a strong one. Hopefully it is. But just organizing things in that way is going to strengthen the sense of that for the reader. So that is about it. In my preparation video, I did talk about how to gather evidence and a little bit more about compiling that. So again, you might want to check that out. Next time I'm going to talk about conclusions, which were the bane of my existence when I was in high school. I really only learned how to do them in college. So I'll share that with you next week. But until then, have a good life, be of good cheer, make sure to like this video if you like it, and don't forget to subscribe for more English nerdy goodness. All right.